Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What is up, guys? Dave here from Metal Epidemic. We're back with another album review, and for this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Spanish extremists Bonecarver. The band's new album, Evil, will be released on March 5th via Unique Leader Records. Formed in 2014, Bonecarver released their first demos on YouTube and started playing live under the name of Cannibal Grandpa.
I'm sure I've seen that movie. Did Trauma not put it out?
In 2015, they released their first album, Feed Your Food, and started to make a name for themselves on the live scene. In 2017, they embarked on their first European tour through France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The same year, they also released their second album, Septum Signa Inferno. The quartet have always been fascinated by serial killers, and their unique combination of innovative extreme metal styles and murder tales quickly took them to the top of the Spanish death metal underground. In summer of 2020, they signed a deal with Unique Leader Records and changed their name to Bonecarver. On the name change, the band said, "We changed the band name from Cannibal Grandpa to Bonecarver as we felt the band had been reinvented. The result was Evil, our most elaborate, mature and most powerful album we have ever written." Bonecarver's concept is sealed in the works of American serial killer Albert Fish.
Ooh, nice. Breaking out the fish. Oh.
Get the excitement on his face.
Oh.
Evil was produced, recorded, mixed and mastered by guitarist Alex Tena. So, Bonecarver, gentlemen. I'd never heard of Bonecarver before, or so I thought. But when obviously I read the press release, I realised I had heard their previous incarnation, Cannibal Grandpa, although I don't remember them sounding as kind of full on as this. From what I can remember about them, they were definitely a more kind of along the kind of deathcore lines. They obviously had like death metal influences and stuff, but this was a wee bit more kind of breakdown heavy than Bonecarver, and slightly less kind of intricate. Bonecarver, on the other hand, should have called themselves Boner Carver, if you ask me.
They really carve into them, Dave.
Yeah, that's. I mean, maybe you don't know what the word carver means, but it involves sharp objects, and I'm letting it nowhere in my dick.
They still throw a lot of the kind of pummeling breakdowns and stuff in, but this album feels far tighter and more focused than the Cannibal Grandpa material. It's machine gun tight in the kind of the riffs department, which for the most part it kind of seems to kind of switch between like really fucking brutal death metal, a bit of kind of slam in there, and some kind of more kind of technical death metal as well. And I think that the first track on the album, Revolver, kind of sets up everything nicely. I think it's all that you want from an album opener. It's got a guitar tone that would strip the enamel from your teeth. You know, it's blisteringly heavy, with riffs that go from the kind of techie, kind of hyper speed into these like grotesque slamming grooves. I'm not going to lie, after track one, I was pretty excited.
Dave's a
one
cheap
track.
Date. He's a cheap date.
Yes. Yeah, I was really, even after one track, I was like, this is right up my street. This is right up my street. But I think when you actually start to dig a little bit deeper, and the further you get into the album, there's actually more going on than I first anticipated from the band. On the second track, Over Torture, you can hear there's a little kind of tinge, a little bit of like hardcore starting to creep through into some of the riffs. But it's also got a very like blackened kind of undertone to it as well. And that kind of blackened sound kind of crops up kind of periodically through the album. Sometimes it's more on the vocal front, you know, like a kind of technique from Fernando, the vocalist. Sometimes it's more of a kind of blackened riff or a bit of lead work. But occasionally they do throw in some like kind of orchestration kind of sounds to kind of create that like ominous kind of layer. and I really dug that kind of bleaker strain that they inject into some of these tracks. I felt like it almost acted like the melody of the album, if that makes sense. And that it kind of opens the tracks up and gives them this kind of sense of atmosphere, and gives you a break in the kind of relentlessness of it. I say almost because even though there is that streak of like the blackened kind of atmosphere now and again, it's a fairly intense listen from start to finish. But it's as intense as it is. When it finished, I put it straight back on again. And I've easily listened to this over 10 times in the last week. For me, this was such an addictive album. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think firstly, it's very, very varied throughout. Not once did I feel like the band were like repeating themselves or just phoning it in. Like every track has incredible musicianship. I think the riffs are really interesting and varied. There's a ton of incredibly good stank face kind of moments is how I would describe it. And I think like when you have a sound as like furious and obliterating as these big kind of colossal sections have to be carefully placed throughout an album. I think too many of those moments and they start to lose their impact a bit. But I thought Bonecarver used them very well. They use them just enough to keep you engaged in the album, but they don't overdo it. And I must admit, as much as I love like a monstrous breakdown, I equally loved the faster and more kind of technical side of the band on this too. Tracks like the Scythe, it comes with the pig squeals and the huge riffs, but also some really, really intricate playing on it, some nice solos, and the drumming is inhuman at points. The speed and detail is just really impressive. Almost reminding me like a kind of cattle decapitation a little in some of the faster sections. Moon Maniac was another kind of favourite of mine from this album. I love the kind of almost kind of black metal tinge in the lead work, and some of the more kind of mid-paced grooves kind of give off that kind of hardcore vibe again that I mentioned earlier. The last riff on that track on Moon Maniac's an absolute killer, like just completely bowel loosening. I can imagine it being going down really well in a kind of live environment as well. Hound Pound, which is one of the greatest song titles ever. That track really stood out for me. It's one of the kind of shorter tracks, but I think that kind of quick runtime really works with a kind of frantic, like it's got a very grindy kind of I don't know, like kind of Brutal Truth meets Pig Destroyer type approach to it. And it sounds quite unique on the album. Like there's not any other tracks that really sound like that on the album, but I really dug it. Like it could be a bit of a risk throwing something a bit different to the rest of the album, but I thought it totally worked. If you hadn't guessed, I really liked this, and I'm so glad they decided to kind of rebrand as Bonecarver, because as much as I thought their Cannibal Grandpa stuff was good, this is way better. I think it does sound more mature than like the band said, but it's also more refined than any of their previous stuff they've done with Cannibal Grandpa. I think there's very little filler on this at all, to be honest. It's a really polished, tight and focused sounding album. It ticks the boxes for me. Kyle, I'm interested to see what Kyle's got to say about this one. The Dream Killer, what you got to say about this?
I love how we're doubling down on this. Dream Killer.
I'm here to kill your dreams. Maybe.
What did you make of these Spanish extremists?
Spanish, you say? I had no idea there was Spanish. That changes everything. And
does it? I didn't either, actually. Like, if I hadn't read they were from Spain, I probably wouldn't have guessed that at all.
No, never. It's hard to tell when you're doing all those guttural sort of low-down growly screams and stuff. It's really hard to tell where people are from. I don't know. I'm in two minds about this one, because on one hand, the riffs are fucking bone-carvingly good. The song structures themselves are really, really good, and I love the writing and the arrangements, and like you said about the epic parts, they spaced them out perfectly, and they had the fast bits and the slow bits and the good openers and the great choruses and the breakdowns and all this stuff. It really worked together. I listened to this loads of times, but there was just a couple of things that really pulled me back from it.
Oh dear.
In the mid to late 1980s, there appeared a thing
we're going back
in death metal and death and all that stuff called pig squeals. And this is going back a while. good 30 years or more, and it's time to put them to rest. In my opinion, I'm just like, okay, there's been 1,000 bands done Pig Squeals. I'm like, okay, I just don't want to hear it anymore. I don't know what it is. I'm just kind of sick of it. I'm like, okay, you can sing without. I understand it sounds funny and all that, but I mean, it just turns me right off. And everything else apart from that, except for one other thing, which I'll come up with in a second. But I mean, they like it. They do it very well. They're very, very good at doing the squeals, and all the vocals were very, very well done. So I can't really fault them because it's just a personal thing, and I'm just like, I just don't fucking like it anymore. But the song arrangements and the guitar tone, come on, that thing is.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, you can tell a guitarist mixed this because I'm not saying the guitars are too loud, but the guitars were paid a lot of attention to, and they sound fucking incredible.
They do.
That tone is like, I want to know how he made it because that is just unbelievable, that tone. Can't believe it. The bass was like, kind of half there, half not. It was one of those thickener basses, really.
Yeah.
In for my age, maybe I didn't listen closely enough to the bass. I was listening to the riffs mostly because the riffs were just like, they were so well done. They were fast and slow. Then, and I like the way they skipped through like the three subgenres of like slam and deathcore and black metal. When they added those blackened elements into it, I think they should lean into that a bit more every now and then because it really set them apart from like all the other deathcore stuff out there. But the one big gripe I have, and Dave knows it's coming, those drums were fucking MIDI. They were MIDI. There's no replacement. If they are played, they were cut up and time-aligned and replaced by Superior Drummer or Addictive Drums or whatever it is, because they were all even across the board. And that was a part of the style, but it pisses me off every fucking time because I want to hear the drummer play. I don't want to hear your computer play the drums. You know? So that's the only gripe I have is like the drums were, and it's not like, the thing is, you can have like a computer do your drums for you if you're not very good at mixing drums. That's fine, don't care. But it's like they're so obviously not real, and it's just like, the sounds of albums sound so much better when at least they're a bit faked, if you know what I mean. Change the velocities on some and just misalign them a tiny little bit, just to make it sound a little bit like a real drummer. But this was just like absolutely on the grid all the time. And that's probably where you said before that you thought the playing was really tight. Your brain can get tricked into that because of the super tight on the grid drums. So the guitars could be a little bit off, but you'd never hear it because the drums are tricking your brain into thinking it's there. On the other hand, the guitarists are really fucking tight anyway. So I'm in two minds about this one because it's like, okay, Pig Squeals, that's a personal thing, what the fuck ever. But I mean, the guitar, the arrangement's really good. The riffs were really, really good. The blending of blackened elements was really, really, really good, and I really like that. Especially the last song, it was more black than anything, and it was such a great send off for an album. And the album didn't overstay its welcome either. How long is it? 10 tracks, 11 tracks, 10 tracks, and I didn't think it was too long. I didn't think it was too short. I think it was just exact right length. And then I just couldn't get past the drums. Sorry. Did I kill a dream or?
Yeah, the drum sound didn't bother me at all on this, and I'm like yourself. I do like a very natural sounding drum kit, but this was so like precise that it kind of worked for me, to be honest. But
yeah, it's like I said, it's part of the style. Like if you mentioned cattle decapitation and stuff like that, it's part of the genre, it's part of it, and fair enough, it's part of that. But to me, it's just, why would you have a drummer if you're just gonna put a drum machine over him? It just makes no sense. Yeah, you probably can play it. Like we said before, you probably could play it. You probably send us another video of I can play this stuff. Like,
send us a video.
Right? That's fine. I believe you. But why am I not hearing you on the album?
Okay. Duncan is left to give us his opinion on this one. What did you make of this one from Bonecarver?
In 1975. I'm all joking. Like, on paper, everything about
I had to drive my point home, right?
On paper, everything about this album, from the name of the band, to the name of the album itself, to the genre in which it plays, made my eyes roll back. So much so that I was concerned that by the time we sat down to do this, my eyes would not have rolled forward. There's something a bit cheesy a bit cringy about naming your album Evil. Right, now granted, they are Spanish, so English is not their first language, and
it is to do with a serial killer.
It's to do with a serial killer. It's a particularly nasty serial killer as well.
All right.
Albert Fish abducted children, molested them, and ate them. All the whilst taking large metal needles and inserting them in his taint.
Right, I don't need to eat ever again. Oh my
And
God.
the worst thing about it is he was an old man. So he was like a grandpa when he started doing it.
I'm never
And that's how he got the kids in, because he looked like, you look at pictures of him, he was nicknamed
Grandpa.
well, this is why I was, when you were talking about it, I was like, this is starting to make a bit of sense. It starts to make sense. The Werewolf of Wisteria was his serial killer name. Because, and as one of these moon maniac, it's because he claimed that when there was a full moon, that's when the urge to kill would overtake him. So there's a lot in here that's speaking my language.
Fountain of knowledge.
Of knowledge that will have me alienated at parties. Well, no one wants to sit down and hear the Albert Fish story while they're eating crab cakes. You know what I mean? It's just not done. But I'd really like to go and
salmon. I've got a fun fact about fish.
I really want to go and get myself. I really want to get myself another beer. However, I have to walk past the serial killer guy. I'll just nurse this half-empty can. So yeah, everything about this should, in principle, turn me off it, because it's weirdly in that kind of generic sweet spot for death metal stuff that makes me cringe. The release itself couldn't be any further from this. I was shocked by how much I enjoyed this, like genuinely shocked. I know what Kyle's saying about the drums didn't bother me at all. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
See, I don't know if it's just a thing about the genre, or if it's just because I'm a producer and I'm sat there going, just do the little step and it'll sound better.
But then I've said before, there's productions out there that are off-putting to me because of the drum sound they use, specifically in death metal, where it sounds all just so monotone. But for whatever reason, that military precision and evenness of the tone, I think works as a great backbone to what they're doing. I love the guitar stuff. The guitars are fucking brilliant on this, and the elements they're mixing in are what made me really excited about it. Once again, a band that uses as their level of atmosphere different tones, different textures, different styles, but never really compromising on the fact that they are a death metal band, and they clearly have their influences from a specific carved out weird little part of death metal. It's that kind of mid-2000s death metal sound that, I was indifferent about, mostly because we were doing that sort of stuff back then. And I was like, Dave wants to play another blast beat. Oh, cool. You know what I mean? I did it because the guys wanted to do it. But as a vocalist, it's one of the more kind of, all right, oh, another one of these, yay, sort of things. But there's a time and a place for it. And what I've found is that the more technical death metal has went, there's a weird part of me that pines for it. There's a weird part of me that pines for that jun jun jun, fucking breakdown, disgusting, sounding like a death metal transformer falling down a flight of stairs. You know what I mean? Just fucking all wrong and shit. There's a part of me that really, really misses out on that. And Bonecarver have it in fucking spades, and they know when to deploy it. Which, it's not in every song, doesn't need to be in every song, but when it does happen, I'm a happy guy. The blackened elements really, really work here. Once again, this is how you should be using black metal, folks, out there in black metal land. Don't write a whole album of incomprehensible shit produced terribly. Take those elements and add them over other things, which make it sound better. It's fucking great on this release, really, really good. Vocally, I know you don't like the pig squeals. I'll be honest with you, for the most part, I'm not a fan of pig squeals either. But this dude he's barking like a dog. I think he's 2 steps away from neon like a fucking jackass. I love it. I loved it because there's a sense of humour in here. It's interesting you mentioned a Pig Destroyer. Like on Hound Pound, I was getting like it's kind of more a kind of disgusting bloodduster kind of humour about it, which I thought worked really, really well with it. Technically, it is like daunting to listen to. Musically, it's heavy and disgusting. Some of the vocal tones are downright disgusting. On the night we're recording this, we have already recorded a review of Bound in Flesh, and we were talking about how fucking
Bound in Fear.
You know, how brutal. What was it? Sorry.
Bound in Fear.
Bound in Fear. Bound in Flesh is the new name of that band. Bound in Fear. It's Bonecarver, and we're talking about flesh things, right?
Okay.
You're lucky I didn't say fucked a fleshlight. That is literally, you know what I mean? That's where we're at, right? But
we're lucky you didn't say that.
Bound in Fear have a vocalist that gets like really like down and deep and guttural and evil sounding, but you can still pick at what he was singing about. You can't make a fucking lick of what this guy's singing about, but this guy sounds 100 times more evil, which fits in with it. There are notsy hits, especially when he's doing the growly, deep inhale kind of squeaky piggy thing that he's doing in here, which is, I mean, is the stuff of fucking nightmares, and it adds that element that the band just needs, is that it's the cherry on top of the sundae. I've listened to this about 6 times. I should not be listening to this 6 times, because on paper this is the sort of thing I would listen to once. I would give 3 stars on this show, and I would say it's not really for me. There's something very Moorish about this, and I think it's the variety, specifically in how they craft their songs. It begs you to go back and listen to another run through to pick out that other little element. I'm glad you mentioned the small bits of kind of blackened hardcore that's in here as well, and they just start to come in, and you're like, oh, what? And then they just move away, and it's like these small influences on the guitar work that I think just add another texture, just another level of interest to what they're doing. This one's like a home run for me. This is, and I'll put my cards down, best death metal album I've heard of 2021. So ooh. I know it's February, and I know we've not done many, but it's the best death metal album I've heard so far in 2021. And if they want to use that as a quote on their posters when they're touring, Duncan said that. And you can remove the bit where I got the other band's name wrong, and I said that you sounded like a black metal transformer falling down a flight of stairs. You can take that off as well. The rest you can keep. No, this is legitimately. There's a part of me that feels like I should be sitting there criticising the fact that the name is the most uninventive, unimaginative name in death metal history, but weirdly, it fucking suits the release. This is an evil sounding album, if ever there was an evil sounding album. So yeah, it had me fully on board.
Nice. Okay, so rating wise for Bonecarver's Evil, as I said earlier, I've listened to this a shitload, probably the most I've listened to any album so far this year. It's a great album. It's a great death metal album, and I double up with what you're saying. It's probably one of the best death metal albums I've heard this year so far. I'm going to go in at a 4.5 on this new one from Bonecarver. Kyle, what are you thinking?
I think I'm going to go 3.5.
3.5 from Kyle, okay. And Duncan?
I'm going to join you in the 4.5 Mile High Club for a bit of shagging in the bathroom. This is a 4.5. This has almost made me want to listen to more death metal, but I'm just going to tell you that's not going to happen until Dave forces another one on me.
It's coming. That is Bonecarver and Evil. Will be released on the 5th of March through Unique Leader Records. If you want to check out the band, facebook.com/Bonecarver official. I'll put some links below to the Facebook and any pre-orders. That's the review. Thanks for checking it out, much appreciated. If you've heard any of the tracks, let us know what you think. Put some comments in below. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on this one. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye everyone.
See you later.